Hi there, this is Hermano and welcome to the channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit longer. We are going to install archlinux on VirtualBox with EFI. Archlinux is a very flexible distribution and it might be a little bit intimidating to install, but I will try to make it as simple as possible. So let's get started. First thing, let's go to the archlinux website and download the ISO. So you're gonna go to archlinux.org, click on download, search for your mirror and download the image. I have already done that, so I don't need to do it. So I'm just going to close this window and open up VirtualBox. And now I'm going to create a new virtual machine. So I'm going to click on New, give it a name. So I'll call it Arch Linux, and it's correctly recognized. I'm going to bump up the memory to 4 gigs. That will be enough. And create. I'm going to give the hard disk 128 gigabytes just to make it comfortable and click create. Now I'm gonna still need to trick some things here. So I'm gonna click on settings, click on system, gonna bump the processor up to 2. I'm gonna keep the display, the max RAM and enable 3D acceleration. This will help us to install the desktop environment after. Click on storage and connect the ISO I just downloaded to the IDE controller. And I'm gonna set the network to bridged adapter and promiscuous mode allow all and click OK. The last thing I need to check is again under settings and system, and I want to make sure to enable EFI as this is going to be an EFI installation. Then I click OK and I click start. So this is a boot flash of the ISO. I know it's a little bit small, but I'm going to fix this as soon as archlinux started. So I'm just going to hit enter to start the ISO. And it might take a while here to validate the signature, so we'll just have to wait. And there you go. So in order to make this a little bit more comfortable, I'm going to log into this installation with SSH. And so I can make the screen a little bit bigger and it's also easier for you to see. So I'll clean the terminal here and I will type in system control start sshd. There you go. Now I need to find out my IP address, otherwise I will not be able to log in with SSH. So in order to do that, I will just type in IPA, as I have a cable connection here, and I see my IP number is 192.168.178.41. So then I need to give a password to the root, otherwise I will not be able to log in SSH. So I will just type in passwd and set the passwords, retype it, and there you go. Now I can pull up my MobiXterm here, go to session, SSH, put in the number 192.168.178.41. Gonna log in as root and type the password. Yes, memorize it, and there you go. Now I'm logged in into the installation and we are ready to install archlinux. So I'm gonna clean up the terminal. If you have a US keyboard, you can skip this step, but I don't, so I need to load my keys here correctly, otherwise I will just type in wrong stuff the whole time. So I'm gonna do this by loading up my key map, which is load keys te_ch dash latin1. And there you go. Now, I've seen already have an IP here. I'm just going to test it out to see that the internet connection works well. So I'm just going to ping google.com. I can see it's working. So I'm just going to stop tick by hitting Control-C. I can see 6 packets transmitted, 6 received. So internet is working fine. So we can proceed with the installation. Now we have internet up. So the first thing I'm going to do is to update the clock. So just type in time, date, control, set -ntp true. With this command, we will basically take the time from the internet. Now, the next step is going to be the most busy one, which is partitioning the disk. So for this demo, I'm just going to format the disk with 3 partitions. The first one is going to be a FAT32 partition. This will be our EFI partition. We will have a second partition for the swap and a third partition for the rest for the home user. So let's get started here. Let's have a look at how many disks we have on this machine here. So I'm going to type in lsblk, list blocks. As you can see, the only hard disk we have is the 128 gigabytes hard disk I created before, and it's named SDA. This is the name of the drive, and this is where we want to install those 3 partitions. So because we are on an EFI installation here, I have to go into use GPT. So I will start partitioning the disk by entering cfdisk, and as a label type, I will select GPT and hit enter. And here I can see free space, 128 gigabytes on the right side. This is the disk. So I'm just going to type on enter here and select new. So the first partition I want to create is the EFI partition, and that's going to be 500 megabyte. So I'm just going to delete the 128 gigabytes here and put in 512 MB and hit enter. There you go. Now I need to select the type. So with the arrow, I will scroll on the right and select type and hit enter. And from here, select the first on the list, which is the EFI system. Hit enter. And we are done with the EFI partition. Now I will move down to the free space and create the second partition. So new is selected. I just hit enter. And this is going to be the swap partition. So I gave actually this virtual machine 4 gigabytes. The rule of thumb is to give the swap partition double of that. So I'm going to give this swap partition 8 gigs. So I'm just going to type in 8 gigabytes and hit enter. And again, with the arrows, I'm going to scroll on type and then hit enter and select Linux swap, which is the one just above, and hit enter again. Now I move down again to free space, and this is the last partition I'm going to create. This is the root partition. So I'm just going to hit new. And partition size, I'm going to let it like it is. This is the rest of the space. Just hit enter. Move with the arrow to type. Hit enter again. And here select Linux file system, which is the one already selected. So I'm just going to hit enter. Now we created a partition. We need to write them to the disk. So just move with the arrows again on the right to write and hit enter. Are you sure you want to write the partition table to the disk? Yes. And hit enter again. And there you go. Now we can move to quit and hit enter. And if we type again lsblk, we'll see we have now the 3 partitions under SDA. SDA1 is the EFI partition, SDA2 is the swap partition, and SDA3 is the root partition. So we are set. Now we created a partition, we need to format them. So first we are going to format the EFI partition. The EFI partition has to be formatted with FAT32 file system in order to function. So let's do that. And I'm going to list again the partitions here so that we can proceed having the numbers in front of us. So the first partition I want to format is the EFI partition, which is SDA1. So I need to format this as a FAT32 partition in order to function well. So let's do that by typing in make file system, mkfs, fat, and I want it to be a FAT32, so just put in -f32. And which device is that? Is the SDA1. So I just have to type in /dev/SDA1 and hit enter. And the partition is created. Now we're going to do the same for the swap partition. So we're just going to type in make swap on dev SDA2 and hit enter. And now we need to activate the swap. So we'll do that by typing in swap on and the device name. So device SDA2. And the swap is active. The last partition, again, we need to format it as a ext4 partitions. So let's do that by typing in make file system.ext4. And that is going to be on dev/SDA3. and hit enter. There you go. So I'm gonna type in lsbk again. So now we need to mount this partition in order for the Linux file system to recognize them. So we are going to mount first the root partition, which is sta3, to the mount directory. So let's do that by typing in mount /dev /sta3 space /mnt. So we're going to mount the sta3 partition to the mount directory and hit enter. And there you go. Now we need to mount the EFI partition to the boot directory. The boot partition, however, is not yet created, so we need to create that first. So let's do that by typing in make directory /mount /boot. Now we created the boot directory under the mount directory, and now we can activate the EFI partition on this boot directory. So let's do that by typing in mount dev sta1, which is our EFI partition, and we're going to mount this on mount boot and hit enter. Now we'll type in shortly again lsblk, and you can see now STA is mounted on boot. STA2 is a swap partition, and the STA3 partition is the root partition. So I'm going to clean up the terminal. So the next step would be to select the mirror list. I'm going to skip this step for now, but it basically means we could edit one file where there is a list of all mirrors of archlinux, and we would have to select the ones we want to use and deselect the ones we don't want to use. But for now, I'm going to use them all, and so I will not edit this file. So now that we have all partitions mounted, we are ready to install the base system. To do that, we're just going to type in pacstrap. We are going to install it in the mount directory. This is the root directory. And we are going to install these packages. Base devil, which is a development tool package. In the end, I'm going to use them anyway, so I just want to install them now. And then Linux and Linux firmware. And then hit enter. So it's going to take a while now to install the system. I'll be back when it's done. So the base system is now installed. I'm going to clean up the terminal. Now by default on Arch Linux, the V editor is installed. If you don't feel comfortable using V or Vim, you can try with Nano, which is a much simpler editor. Nano is, however, not installed by default in Arch Linux, so we need to install that. And we'll install that by typing in pacman-sy nano and type yes. And now you have Nano installed as well. So I'm going to clean up the terminal again, and we can move forward to the next step, which is configuring the system and generating the FS tab, the file system tab file. So we are going to do this by typing in this command, which is generate the file system tab -u mount directory and append it to the file etc file system tab and hit enter. So now if we use the Nano editor, for example, to look at this file, we'll see the three partitions we just created before. So I'm just going to type in nano/etc/fs tab. As you can see, we have STA3, the UUID number of the device. It sits on the root directory, which is a /. It's an ext4 file type. It has a few options there in the middle, which I'm just going to skip now. And the 1 at the end means that the file system is going to be checked at every boot. We have then STA1, which is our boot directory. It's formatted as a FAT directory, and it's going to also be checked. And the STA2, which is the swap directory, which has its own defaults. So the file looks good. I'm just going to hit here Control X to exit the file and clean up the terminal. Now it's time to enter the system we just installed in order to change some elements there. So I'm just going to type in here arch root, and we are going to go into the mount directory, which is where we install the system, and hit enter. And as you can see, the command prompt now changed. We are now into the installation we just installed. So now we're going to change the time zone. In order to do that, I'm just going to type in ln-sf/user /share /zone info /Europe in my case, and /Zurich, which is the city in my case. And I'm going to save this information in the etc local time and hit enter. And now we can set the hardware clock to the system clock. And we're going to do this with this command. So HW hardware clock -- system to hardware clock. And there you go. And so now it's time to generate the locales. So we're going to do this by editing the locale.gen file. So I'm going to do this by typing in nano etc locale.gen. And I'm going to scroll down with the arrows, and I need to uncomment the locale I want to select. So in my case, I want to select English US, and that's going to be this one, US UTF-8. So I'm going to delete this hashtag here so that this is activated. I'm going to type in now Control O and Enter to write the file, and Control X to exit the editor. If you still cannot edit this file with Nano, you might have to reinstall it again by doing pacman-sy nano. Okay, so I'm going to clean up the terminal again, and now we need to generate the locale we just created. So I'm just going to type in locale-gen, and there you go. Now we need to create the locale.conf file and put in this information. So let's do that by typing in nano/etc/locale.conf. And I'm going to write in here language equal English _ US.UTF-8. Control O and Enter to write the file, Control X to exit the file. Now, because I've changed my key map at the beginning, I need to put this in the system as well. So I have to edit the vconsole.conf file. If you have a US keyboard, you don't need to do this, but in my case, I have to, so I'll just type in nano/etc/vconsole.conf. And I'll put in this key map, which is mine. So key map equal d_ch-latin1. Control O, Enter to save the file, Control X to exit the file. Now we need to set the host name for the machine. So we are going to do this by typing in nano/etc/hostname. And I'm going to call this machine Arch. Again, Control O, Enter to save the file, Control X to exit. Then we need to edit the hosts file. So type in again nano/etc/hosts. And I scroll down here and I'll just put in this info. So 127.0.0.1 tab localhost, second line, ;:1 tab, again localhost 127.0.1.1, and this one is going to be called Arch, which is the host name .local domain tab, and the host name again, which is Arch. So you have to change this depending on the name you chose. Control O, Enter to save the file, Control X to exit the editor. So now I'm going to install the Network Manager package and enable it so that when we start the Linux system after, it's going to be automatically enabled and we are going to have internet already there. So to install the Network Manager, I'm just going to type in pacman-s network manager. And I'll type yes to accept it. And it's done. And I clean up the terminal. And now I'm going to enable it so that when the system starts, we have already internet automatically. So to do this, I'm going to type in system control enable network manager. Make sure you type network and manager with the capital letters. This is important. And hit enter. And this is done. Now I'm going to change again the root password for the installation. So I'm going to type in again passwd. I'm going to choose a new password. Enter, retype in, and enter again. And now we need to install the bootloader, which will allow us to boot into the system. So let's do this by typing in pacman-s grub, which is the bootloader. And I'm going to download also another package, which is EFI boot mgr, boot manager. And hit enter, accept the packages, and it's done. I clean up the terminal. And now I need to install Grub on the EFI partition, which was our SDA1. The SDA1 partition is mounted to the boot directory, and that's where we are going to install Grub. So let's do this by typing in grub-install space -- the target is a 64-bit machine, so it's a x86_64-EFI space -- the EFI directory is equal to the boot directory. Make sure you type the command correctly, and when you're ready, hit enter. No error reported. Great. Now we need to still create the configuration file for Grub, and we'll do that by typing in grub-makeconfig-o. We want to have this file under the boot directory, and then under the Grub directory, and the file name is grub.cfg. And hit enter. And it's done. So the system is now installed. So I'm going to exit the installation by typing exit to return to the installer. And I'm going to unmount all the partitions by typing in umount-a. That means we want to unmount all partitions. We get some busy errors here, but those are fine. And the last thing I'm going to do, and just type in reboot. And before I hit enter here, I'm going to switch to VirtualBox because I'm going to lose the SSH connection here. So I hit enter, and I go back to archlinux. And as you can see now, we have the bootloader here correctly installed. So I'm just going to hit enter to start the system. And there is our login prompt. So I'm just going to log in with root and the password. And there you go. So I want to go back to the SSH, but I need to install the package again. So I'm going to install OpenSSH here, and I'm going to do this by typing in pacman-sy OpenSSH. Yes, I'll accept the packages, and it's installed. Then next I need to start the SSH service, otherwise I cannot use it. So I will type in system control start SSHD. And there you go. If I'm going to check now the status, I'm going to type in status. And as you can see, it's active and running. Now, before I'm going to connect to SSH again, I'm going to create a new user, which is my personal account. So I'll do this by typing in user add -m and then --G, which is to the group, to the wheel group. This is for the Pseudo, for the power user. We'll do this later anyway. And my name is Hermano. And there you go. Now I want to create a password for me, so I'll just type in passwd hermano and put in the password. And there you go. Now I'm going to check the IP again, and I want to connect again with SSH. So I'm going to close this tab here, since I have another IP this time. And I'm going to type in SSH and 192.168.178.42. And I'm going to log in as hermano and my password. Yes, save it, and there you go. I am now in my Arch installation. Now I need to set my username as a sudo. That means I have then the power to update the packages or install software with the sudo command. So to do this, I need to edit one file. So first I'm going to go back as a root here, typing su and the password. And now I'm going to type in editor equal nano. vsudo is the file we want to edit. And here you just have to scroll down with the arrows until we find the wheel group. And there you go here. You see the root have all privileges, and I want to give the same privileges to people in the wheel group. So I'm just going to uncomment this line here. And then again, Control O and Enter to save the file, Control X to exit the file. Now, if I go back to my account, so I'll type in exit, and that's again hermano here, I can try to update the packages and see if it works. Sudo pacman-syu, my password, and there you go. I can update the packages fine. So now we are ready to install the desktop environment. And before we can install a desktop environment, we need to install the display server and the display manager. So let's do this by typing in sudo pacman-s xorg-server and hit enter. I accept the packages. It's going to take a while to install here. I'll be back when it's done. So there you go. Just clean up the terminal again. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to install a display manager. So I want to install actually GNOME as a desktop environment. So I'm going to choose GDM as a display manager. So I'm going to install this by typing in sudo pacman-s, always capital S, GDM, and hit enter. Accept the packages. It's going to take a while to install, so I'll be back again when it's done. So now it's done. We have a display manager installed. However, we need to enable it so that it starts automatically when we start archlinux. So I'm going to clean up the terminal and type in now sudo system control enable GDM and hit enter. There you go. Now we are ready to install the desktop environment. I'm going to install GNOME on this system. So for that, I need to have two packages. And those are, I'm going to type in the command sudo pacman-S GNOME and GNOME-extra and hit enter. So I'm going to accept the defaults here by hitting enter. Again, I'm going to accept the defaults by hitting enter. And I'm going to choose here the default repository, which is the number 1. Just going to hit enter here. And again, the number 1 as a default. And it's going to install now a lot of packages, as you can see. So I'm just going to hit Y here and enter and let it install, and I'll be back when it's done. So GNOME is now installed. I'm going to exit the session here and switch over to VirtualBox. And I'm going to type in now reboot. And when the system reboots, we should log into GNOME directly. And there we have it. We have GNOME installed and working. So I'm just going to log in with my password. And there you go. GNOME is installed and fully functional. So this is a basic install of Arch Linux. It takes a while maybe at the beginning to get used to it, but once you know how it works, it's fairly simple actually. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see more, make sure you like this video by clicking the like button below and subscribe to the channel if you want to be notified of future videos. And if there's anything specific you want me to cover in Linux, let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.